This is my review of the Ace Frehley album Origins Volume 1. It was released in 2016 and produced by Ace Frehley along with, I'm going to butcher these guys' last names, but Warren Hewart and Ken Gulick. And Paul Stanley also has a production credit, probably, I guess, for his vocal. So yeah, this album, I didn't get this when it first came out. I remember when it came out, I listened to it on YouTube a few times. Was pretty broke at the time, so I just didn't end up buying it. I bought this copy when I was going through and buying all the Ace's stuff around like 2020, and this was the last one I got at the time, so it's the second to last Ace album I got, the last one being his most recent, 10,000 Volts. But yeah, this album, I don't know, it's a covers album, so I don't really put it in very much at all. I think this is the first covers album I've actually reviewed on here. I've reviewed albums with a lot of covers, but I think kind of my problem with this album is just that I'm familiar with the original versions of most of these songs, and it's really hard for a lot of these versions to top those songs, especially with kind of like Ace's vocal limitations. But yeah, as a whole though, I don't think it's like a bad album or anything. As far as like Ace doing covers, it's interesting to hear him do these versions. The album opens with a Cream cover, White Room. This is one of the songs that kind of just suffers for me being a really big fan of the original version. I mean, I almost wish that he would have picked more or like just different songs from some of these bands to do. Like, it's cool that he's covering these old guys that he was a fan of, and I'm a fan of most of these bands as well, so it's kind of cool to hear Ace do his version. But like, I just wish he would have done songs that were a little bit less like prominent and maybe ones that could have like fit him a little better. Yeah, White Room, pretty decent opener. Ace sings part of it. His drummer Scott Coogan sings another part. I think they sound pretty good. Even though I think Ace on this album vocally sounds like he's getting more like electronic help than he has sounded like up to this point, even though he probably has been getting some at least since he came back, and started doing new albums. I think that the guitars sound pretty good on this. I think Ace plays some cool stuff. I mean, I like his solo at the end, even though it kind of, I mean, I love the original like end wah wah solo by Clapton, but I mean, Ace does a pretty cool job here. I think the drums to me are the most thing that kind of throws me off the most. Like, they're just not quite up to what like Ginger Baker did on the original track. But yeah, pretty good good opener. Second track, Street Fighting Man, Rolling Stones cover. Another one where I love the original. This one I think I like a little more on here than I do White Room. I like the guitar, it's cool hearing it done like electrically like this. I like Ace's solo. I think it's kind of like reminiscent of what he did on 2000 Man, which I'm sure he probably did on purpose, but I don't know, I like 2000 Man as a Rolling Stones cover better than this one because he kind of made that his own more than he did with this one. But I do like this one. I think he does a good job with it. I like his vocal, even though it doesn't quite like have the aggression of Mick Jagger's vocal in the original version. But yeah, pretty good cover. Third track, Spanish Castle Magic, Jimi Hendrix cover. This one features John 5. Another one where I love the original version, so it kind of has a hard time measuring up. But it does have some pretty cool guitar on it. I think most of the stuff I really like is probably John 5 playing. But yeah, some cool guitar stuff on it. I think that the vocals are okay. Drums on this one again, kind of not quite, what Mitch Mitchell, or like up to the stuff that Mitch Mitchell did, I don't feel like, but still pretty decent. So good pretty good cover. Fourth track, Fire and Water, free song featuring Paul Stanley on vocals. This one, I'm not familiar with the original version, not really familiar with much Free, just a band that I haven't like encountered yet. But I like it here. It's not, song-wise, it's not my favorite, but I like Paul's vocal. I like Ace's guitar solo, so pretty solid track. It's cool to hear Paul and on an Ace album. The fifth track, Emerald, is a Thin Lizzy cover. This one, like, I'm a little bit more familiar with Thin Lizzy than I am with Free. I don't have any of their albums, but I've listened to them quite a bit, like with other people playing them at work, and I do like their stuff. They're a band that I want to get into more later. But yeah, this one features Slash as a guest on it, and I like this one. It's cool to hear them play together. It's a good song. I think Ace does a decent job vocally, so this one's pretty cool too. The sixth track, Bring It On Home, cover of Zeppelin covering Willie Dixon. This one, I like this one quite a bit. In the beginning, kind of like more bluesy part, I like the little like guitar stuff that he's throwing in there. I think it makes that part more interesting, because like that part, even in the Zeppelin version, is like my least favorite part of the song, even though I really like the Zeppelin version of the song. I've never been like really crazy about when they're doing that like blues part. I kind of like when the drums kick in more. Speaking of the drums on here, I think that his drummer does a better Bonham than he does job with the Mitchell and Ginger Baker stuff. So I like the drums on here. I think, and he also sings the like part where the drums come in. I think he sounds pretty good there. So yeah, good cover. This one I like a little more than I like of some of the other ones where I'm more familiar with the song. Seventh track, Wild Thing, cover of the Trogs featuring Lita Ford. Not really super familiar with the Trogs, and I've never really been a big fan of this song. The original version, like I know the original version just because it's out there, you hear it a lot. But yeah, that's not my favorite song. This is probably my least favorite track on here. Just not the hugest fan of this song. The eighth track, Parasite, Ace covering one of his Kiss songs, which I think is kind of cool just to hear Ace do a version of this song where he sings all of it in the studio, since he had, it's one of the songs that he let Gene sing. So it's cool to hear Ace do a version of it. I think it's a little, like, it sounds heavier now than here than it does in the Hotter Than Hell version. So I think that's pretty cool. Overall, pretty good version of it. Ninth track, Magic Carpet Ride, Steppenwolf cover. This one is like a song where I'm really familiar with the original version. I've heard it a lot and I like it a lot, but I also don't have any like super deep connection to it, because like I've never owned it in my collection and never like just listened to it a whole lot. So I think that's why this is probably like my favorite song on the album, just because I like the song, don't have like a super deep connection with the original, so I just enjoy the cover quite a bit. So yeah, Magic Carpet Ride, probably my favorite song on the album. 10th track, Cold Gin. This is featuring Mike McCready. Another Ace covering one of his Kiss songs, and pretty much same goes for this as the other one. It's got a little heavier than its original version. It's cool to hear Ace like singing his own song. This one probably more so than Parasite, just because like it's more believable with Ace singing it than with Gene, who has never drank. The next track, Till the End of the Day, a Kinks cover. And I love the Kinks, but I don't have their whole discography. They have like a million albums. I've got like a pretty good chunk of it, but I don't have the album with this on it. So I'm not familiar with their version of this. But I do like this. I think it's a pretty good one. And yeah, it's I think I'll probably like their version better. I have a feeling, but yeah, I think it's pretty good. And then the 12th and final track is another Kiss cover, but this time from Creatures, so Ace wasn't part of it, and it's Rock and Roll Hell. I think it's a good closing track, one of the more interesting songs on here, and one of the ones I go back to more just because it's cool to hear Ace play a Kiss song that he wasn't on. Mainly for his guitar solo, I feel like. It's interesting to hear that, like in this context of this song. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's not as good as the original. His voice can't like reach the vocal that Gene did on that original. But yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, Origins Volume 1, it's not bad, but it's a covers album, and I'd say that it's Ace doing a covers album is definitely limited by his like vocal ability a little bit, and so I don't think it's like an album to get if you're not a huge Ace fan, if you don't like if you don't like his singing, or if you're not into other all of his like other albums. Like, this isn't the first Ace album to go out and buy. It's something to get only if you're like into his other albums.